Hello, my fellow fundraising friends from across the pond. I'm grateful to be with you. My name is Nathan Hill. I'm the vice president of training at a company called Avid. And at Avid, we're aspiring to be the first fundraising agency in the cloud, which means that our tool is taking in all your data and all your different platforms, visualizing it for you in very clear ways. So you can see what's happening across your program, but also helping you understand what's working and what's not. And ultimately, not just stopping there, but actually helping you go deploy strategies to go fix the problem areas before they snowball into even bigger problems. So that's just a little bit about what Avid is and kind of the platform that we're building. It's not available in Europe yet, but someday, hopefully soon, it will be available to you. In the meantime, I get the privilege and the chance to get to share a little bit with you about A/B testing, donation pages, email optimization, some things that I've seen over the years working to actually improve results in those key areas. And so I want to take the next few minutes and specifically talk about the power and the value of A/B testing. You're probably familiar with it as a concept, or conversion rate optimization as a concept, but I want to show you some specific examples of how it can be applied in the nonprofit space, in the fundraising world, to actually grow giving and generosity. So let's dive into a couple quick little examples. Here is an example of an A/B test. This is version A of a donation form. You can see it looks pretty standard. You've got a few different giving options in the gift array. You also have this express checkout option with this large Google Pay button that's visible within the form. Now, this organization actually ran a test on their form, wondering, maybe strangely so, if we decrease the size of that Google Pay button, might it actually change the result in a significant way? So think for a moment, which one do you think is going to lead to a better result, leading to more donations? Do you think version A with the large Google Pay button, or version B with the kind of smaller Google Pay button? Tell your neighbor, tell your friend, put in the chat, write it down. Would you be surprised to learn that version B actually led to a 21% increase in donations by limiting the footprint of that Google Pay button? It was less interruptive and intrusive in the process. It maybe felt out of place when it was bigger. It put the focus on Google Pay rather than maybe the gift itself. Even these subtle little changes can make a significant impact on our conversions and on our donations. Let's look at another. This is another experiment, version A versus version B. They're very, very similar. They're just asking for two different amounts. Version A is asking for a $30 donation. Version B is asking for a $60 donation. Which one do you think is going to lead to more donations and revenue? Well, in this case, what they found was that version B, asking for a larger gift amount, decreased the number of donations. But this was the first test on a series of tests where they're trying to figure out, as their costs have increased to provide their services, how do we go honestly talk about the costs, but in a way that doesn't harm our fundraising? They tested all their way to basically talking about how much it takes to power a site for a week rather than a month, to decrease the giving amount, ultimately leading to results in the positive direction. But it started with learning that just asking for a bigger number might actually harm donations. So testing can be really powerful to unlock some of these learnings that ultimately can lead us to a lift down the road. Here's another cool example, version A versus version B. I'm going to tell you straight up that version B is the winner. It led to an increase in giving. They added a Dear Reader style ad at the end of all the articles on this nonprofit website, asking directly for a gift right after someone has engaged with this content. How much do you think version B is going to lead to as an increase in donations? 10%, 20%, 50%, maybe 100%? You ready? You're not ready for this number. A 1,490% increase in donations. Now they are significantly capturing the traffic on these pages and leading these people to give. And so testing can really show us the dramatic impact sometimes of the different strategies and tactics that we're putting into place. Even if we're like so sure it's going to work, having the number to know the value of the time and effort we've sunk into a project or a campaign can be tremendously informative and valuable. I'm curious how you decided along the way. How do you decide between version A and version B? Which one do you think is going to win? Are you using your gut to kind of decide which one? Are you leaning on maybe previous experience? Usually people make these decisions in one of three ways. Sometimes relying on we're relying on our intuition, which, as you probably know, intuition can be very subjective. It's always changing because we're always taking in new experiences and kind of retraining and refiltering our brains to think one thing or another. It's not really very reliable from an objective point of view. Why is your intuition better than someone else's? We don't know until we put it to the test. Oftentimes, we rely on things like best practices. What we've been told over time is going to be the best way to do something. But the reality is, many best practices have never actually been tested. They've just been passed on word of mouth. And oftentimes, someone tried something once over here and maybe felt it was a good practice, and then it's just been passed down and passed down. What if best practices are in conflict with one another? Best practices aren't specific to you and your donors and your organization, so we have to test these things to see if they actually work. Then you've got familiarity bias. We're just generally less inclined to consider new ideas when we already like how something looks or how something functions. How do you know if you go see an interesting idea out there in the wild world? How do you know that what other people are doing is actually good or effective? How do you know that they tested it? How do you know that it's getting results? We don't until we test it for ourselves. And so this is why we A/B test, because it's statistical proof of what actually works. And in our case, works to grow giving. Secondly, the results are contextual to you. It tells you exactly what's working with your donors, your audiences, even into various donor segments, because not all donors are alike. And it helps us remove the bias and cuts through subjectivity that comes with competing intuition. Now, it's not all pros with A/B testing. There are challenges. It requires some expertise to do it well. Granted, I'm going to tell you, I'd rather you just jump right into testing and fail forward, learn from mistakes as you go. You don't have to be a data scientist to get started, but it does take some expertise to do it well. It can be really hard to test complex goals and complex outcomes, so it's not always the best tool for making huge strategic decisions that have a lot of different variables. It might be something you can use to isolate those different variables over time and inform your thinking. And then ultimately, it takes time and it takes volume. You can't run a statistically significant A/B test on just a handful of donors or a handful of people visiting your website. So there are some limitations around volume that can be a challenge. But just to kind of wrap things up, when you are thinking about A/B testing and applying this to your fundraising, I want you to know that an A/B test is not just, well, we changed some things on the website or in an email or on the donation page, and now we're just kind of watching results to see what happens. That's not an A/B test. That's kind of just a hope and pray strategy. Maybe a little bit data informed, but it's not the same as an A/B test. In an A/B test, what we're doing is taking your website traffic, or maybe it's even the people you're sending an email to, and at the same time, within a fixed time frame, you're splitting that traffic in half. So half of them see version A, maybe it's a version of a page with a blue button, and then half of them see version B, or the treatment, a version of the page with a orange button. That's not the most effective test, but go with me here. You're splitting the traffic, seeing two different versions of the page at the same time, which removes all the other variables that could be influencing why someone chooses to say yes or to say no to giving. You don't have the seasonality effect that comes into play. You don't have any other kind of unpredictable events that are changing, one group or the other group's perspective. It's all happening at the same time. And it's through this type of methodology that we can bring science to the table and real concrete data to the table to clearly understand what truly works to grow giving so that we can have an even greater impact on our missions. Hopefully, this is helpful for you to start to think about how you can apply A/B testing to your organizations and to your fundraising.